Hello and welcome to today's lecture. Today we will focus on the document and the key setup information required to start any printed product. Today's focus will be press sheet, image bleed, crop marks, trim or finish size, margin size, and live area. Take a look at the colors for the bullet points. These will help indicate which areas are which. We'll start with the press sheet. The press sheet is the original page cut specifically for the job you are printing. The pre-planning of the job would indicate the size required for the press sheet. Normally, the press sheet would have multiple finished products in post. For example, 8 business cards can be produced on an 8.5 by 11 press sheet size. Press sheets are designed to save the printer time and money. Can you imagine printing individual business cards? The average business card is 2.5 by 3 inches. That would be incredibly small to fit into your home printer, let alone any commercial printer. This way, with 8.5 by 11, you can print out 8 at a time and even 8 different employee cards at once. These are little tricks that can help the printers. Next is the bleed. The bleed is the printed area that extends beyond the edge of the finished trim area. The final product is trimmed to size and the rest is disregarded. Bleed allows for borderless printing, avoiding any white edges. So everyone has tried to print out an image with their home printer and then use a pair of scissors to cut along the edge of that photo. Ever have that little white sliver next to the photo you're trying to cut? The bleed is designed to help ensure that can't happen. Bleed helps to make the final cutting stage easier. Think of a stack of pages being cut all at once. A common trigger for printers are customer files being supplied without added bleed area. This is something I deal with every day. Even graphic designers, even professionals, even other printing companies will send us files without a bleed attached. We can make it work, and as a printer and as a print shop, that's something we have to deal with. Ideally, every file comes with a bleed and just makes it easier overall. Next, we have crop marks. Crop marks are guides used by commercial printers for distinguishing where to cut the edge of the finished product. The lines tend to cross over the bleed area, keeping the outside of the final trim size. So here on the right-hand side, it shows our press sheet and our bleed. Now we've added our crop marks that cross over our bleed line. Also known as trim marks, these are crucial to ensuring a stack of printed products are cut perfectly to size. For borderless printing, the bleed extends past the crop marks. However, crop marks are also helpful to ensure a perfectly spaced border. So, as you can see on the right-hand side, there's a little white edge. As this diagram shows, that's the bleed area. However, sometimes a finished product requires that white edge to be on the inside of the box. Crop marks help make sure that that measurement stays perfectly even on the full perimeter of your finished product. Trim size or finish size. The trim size refers to the dimensions of a document after it has been printed and cut down to the finished width and height from the press sheet and prior to any folding. The press sheet is trimmed to remove the bleed and crop marks. So ultimately, at the end of the day, your customer will only see what is within this trim or finish size, hence the finished product. So that's the only part that they see. The rest is just printer's magic. This is also important when you have multiple products imposed on one press sheet. The trim or finish size refers to the document size when we are setting up our InDesign page size for the final product. So as you can see on the right again, every single business card will have a bleed because it has a finished trim size. That means every single card also has individual crop marks. Margin. Margins are a form of guidelines used to separate the area between the main content of the page and the edge of the page. Think of margins as a safety to ensure no important information falls off the edge of the page. So here we have a purple box on the inside of our trim size. This may be familiar as we went over it last week when building our InDesign template. There was a purpley pink line on the inside of our InDesign document, which we referred to as the margin. However, there is an exception. Sometimes there are design elements that can fall off the page. These elements are allowed outside of the margin area. The size of the margin is determined by the finish size. So depending on the detail of your finish size, the margin area may increase or decrease. Because a business card is already so small, the margin area is also going to be small, usually about 1/8 of an inch. However, when you have banners or posters or large print areas, sometimes that margin area can be 1 inch or more to ensure that nothing gets cut off that is important information. However, as the exception states, sometimes with business cards you like to have the logo that runs off the edge of the card, maybe a brochure that has an image that runs off of the card. Those elements of design are allowed outside of the margin and within our bleed. But any important information, such as in a business card, we'll continue with that example, the phone number, the email address, the name of the person on the business card, that all must stay within the margin area to ensure it doesn't get cut off. Lastly, the live area. The live area is the most important area of the finished project. This is where the crucial information is placed. With all the safeties and guides in proper place, the live area should remain intact to the final product. So the live area is everything within the margin, as shown on the right-hand side. Here's the InDesign setup. So this should look familiar from last week. At the top, we input our file name. We then have our width and our height of our product, the trim size or the finish size, or as stated on your assignment sheet, the document size. Next, this should be familiar. We have the margin. Also will be supplied to you on your assignment sheet. Make sure you always have your little links secured so that you have the same margin on all 4 sides. This week we'll be adding the bleed. Almost just as crucial as the margin. This is for the area that extends past your finished size. So once again, keep your link in place and the dimensions will always be noted on your assignment sheet. Now, for something new. This week, once you've finished our project, we'll be exporting a second and separate PDF file using the specs provided on the assignment sheet. These specs can always be found under the marks and bleeds, where you will make sure you'll turn on all the printer's marks. However, this one shows just the crop marks to show you where to find that information, but also we will ensure that the bleed is intact for this assignment today. We'll review this in that tutorial. So lastly, to recap, we have our press sheet. So this is a page that is cut, or maybe it's just the maximum sheet that can fit in your printing press. And with that, you will lay out as many of your finished size as possible, ensuring that you have enough space to add your bleed and crop marks, and ensuring that your margin and live area are all intact, that they don't get cut off in the final stages of finishing in your print shop. That's everything for today. Does anybody have any questions? We'll meet back in our chat in Microsoft Teams.